Start. Hey,
How long are we waiting for people to file in, or are we just starting?
you can go ahead and get started.
Okay. All right. Good afternoon, Lehigh students. Welcome to. Actually, I see some people coming in, so I'll wait a few more seconds. If you're just coming in, welcome to the Government, Public Service, and International Affairs Alumni Panel. If that's not what you're here for, welcome anyway. Okay, just waiting for Keegan to come back online with us. All right, let's get started. Good early evening, everybody. Welcome to Lehigh Center for Career and Professional Development Alumni Panel Series. This is our first time with this series, so we're very happy that you're here. This is our fifth series, the Government, Public Service, and International Affairs Panel. Thank you so much for joining us. I'll be one of your co-moderators today. My name is Ryan Javier. I'm a current fourth year studying ideas in global studies. On campus, I'm president of the Asian Culture Society. I was a former Lehigh University UN Partnership Office intern, and most recently, I worked in New York as a fellow for the Ban Ki-moon Foundation doing policy memos in South Korea and Asia. And today I'm very happy to co-host slash moderate with Maren Ludwig.
Thanks, Ryan. I'm Maren Ludwig. Sorry, it sounds weird to say. I'm Maren. I'm a senior. I'm studying political science and international relations at Lehigh. I've also been a captain of the women's swim team. I've been involved with that, or just on the team my past 4 years. And then some other stuff I've done here. I've been an intern for Senator Nick Miller's office in Allentown. I did that my junior spring semester. And I've also this semester been a volunteer through the chaplain's office, tutoring prisoners at the local Northampton County jail. So I'll kick off the questions now. So the first question is, can you briefly introduce yourself and share about your current role? And we'll start with Sophia.
Oh my gosh, hi, Lehigh students. Oh my gosh, this feels so full circle because I literally graduated less than a year ago. But hi, I'm Sophia. I graduated from Lehigh last spring, and I currently work in the digital team for Governor Josh Shapiro's reelection campaign here in Pennsylvania. So I basically sit at the intersection of content and strategy. So any given day, I'm like creating graphics, I'm filming vertical video, or I'm editing video at events. I'm helping with scripts for, DTCs, or I'm helping shape how we communicate with voters online in real time. A big part of what I do is, translating what's really happening on the ground, whether it's a policy announcement or a local visit, into content that really engages people online. A big theme across my work is my passion for storytelling, whether it's my experience in journalism, in media, or political communications. I've always been interested on how narratives are shaped and who gets heard and how information reaches different audiences. I see my current role on this campaign as a continuation of that, just in a very fast and more digital first environment. And I also think that this role really has me thinking about my intentionality about audiences and who we try to reach and what platforms we're on and how messaging shifts depending on the space. The way, you communicate something on Instagram is different versus on TikTok or Twitter. It can all be very different, even if the core message is the same. And yeah, I mean, the biggest piece of my role right now is rapid response. On a campaign, things move very quickly and you just have to be ready to respond, very quickly. So the balance between being fast and being accurate is what makes this job so much fun. So yeah.
Awesome. And then Raven, do you mind going next? Just a little bit about yourself. and what you're doing
Sure.
now.
Hi, everyone. My name is Raven Gaddy. I'm a graduate in the class of 2015. I was a double major in global studies and Africana studies with a minor in sustainable development. I am currently an intelligence analyst at the National Counterterrorism Center in the DC area. I have been in public service for about 7 years now in a variety of roles, including working at the Department of Justice, working at the Department of Education. I was also a Peace Corps volunteer in Madagascar. So in my current role, I currently work in terrorist weapons and tactics and emerging technology, so guns, explosives, weaponized drones. And our job primarily is to warn of counterterrorism threats to a variety of audiences, including policymakers, but most importantly, our folks downrange, so our folks in the military, our first responders on the state, local, federal, and tribal levels, and just to make sure that we are helping the government respond to active terrorist threats.
Awesome. All right, Bridget, do you mind going next?
Yeah, of course. Hi everyone. My name is Bridget Holmes. I graduated in 2000 from Lehigh. I was a psychology major and an education minor. And currently I'm the executive director of Bell Ringer, which is a bike ride that raises money for cancer research at Georgetown University's Lombardi Comprehensive Cancer Center. I have spent the vast majority of my career in higher education. So, right out of Lehigh, I got my master's in counseling and then worked at Villanova for quite some time and then moved over to Georgetown, where I've been for about 20 years. Raven, we can hang out in DC. Um, Bell ringer, it's a relatively new role for me. I've been in this role for about a year and a half, and I've kind of come back to working within the healthcare space, which has been really rewarding and exciting. So happy to chat more about that, but that's just kind of the quick overview.
Awesome. And Keegan.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. My name's Keegan Casey, class of 24, international relations and economics major. Did a lot at Lehigh, was on the swim team, student athlete mentor, tour guide. I was a Griffin over there. One of my proudest accomplishments, though, was working at the Goose. Fun fact, there's actually a sandwich that's my signature sandwich called the Mighty Marine. That kind of leads into what I ultimately do now. So right now, currently serving as I'm a first lieutenant in the Marine Corps, currently serving as the manpower officer over at 2nd Battalion, 11th Marines, artillery unit. So we have essentially these big cannons that go boom. I'm essentially the guy that behind the scenes that does all the admin and all the legal work for the commanding officer here at 211. So currently about 45 minutes north of San Diego. So for everyone on the East Coast, 7:30. Right now, it's only 4:30 in the afternoon here. So still sunny, but happy to chat more about my role. So.
Yeah, I'm from California, so I'm missing that sun too. But yeah, as you can see, we have a wide range of panelists today. And so our next question is, what early career experiences helped you guys figure out what career paths best suited you guys? And we'll start with Raven for this question.
Sure. I didn't really know what career path I wanted to go on, but I knew that I had a passion for traveling and being abroad and learning new cultures and intersecting that with the opportunity to serve. So a lot of my Lehigh experiences abroad kind of shaped what I wanted to do. So I was able to also do a UN internship in New York with an NGO from Nigeria. I did an Iacocca internship in Milan with a human rights organization. And then I spent a lot of my sustainable development time in Kenya. So we went to Kenya twice to do some of that type of work. And then spent my senior fall, weirdly enough, as a global studies major in Morocco, learning about migrant travel through the country and kind of some of the human rights issues and conflicts that dealt with that. So I used a lot of my Lehigh kind of academic experiences to catapult myself and to be able to go out into the world and kind of feel what it's like to serve. Which ultimately served me in the Peace Corps when I was in Madagascar for about a year and a half until COVID.
All right, and then next up we'll have Bridget.
Yeah, so goodness, it's hard to think back this far, but when I was at Lehigh, I was a Griffin, which was kind of pivotal and an important moment for me at Lehigh. I loved being a Griffin. I always knew I wanted to be a psychology major when I came to Lehigh. I knew I wanted to work with people. But I knew I didn't want to be a psychologist. So I was trying to figure out kind of what I want to do. At one point, I was, dead set on being an FBI profiler. I wanted to be Jodie Foster in Silence of the Lambs. I was gonna go be in the FBI. And that, you can see now I'm working in higher ed and raising money for cancer research. So that just kind of shows how circuitous career paths can be. But while I was Lehigh, I did an internship working with an organization called Project Impact and Emmaus, which is a foster care agency where I worked with juvenile sex offenders. So that kind of gave me a little bit of a taste of kind of what that world would be like. I also did an internship while I was at Lehigh at Easton Hospital. So I've kind of come back to the medical roots that I had while I was in undergrad. Um, Once I graduated Lehigh, I knew I wasn't quite ready to figure out what I wanted to do for long term. And so I went to grad school right away. I ended up going to Penn and got my master's in education, specifically in counseling. And through that, I got an internship working in career services at Philadelphia University. And I actually loved working within the career services realm. I got to work with psychology and work with people and help them discover what they wanted to do with their lives. And that kind of then positioned me into a long career in higher ed. So started in career services. And then I worked in alumni relations for a really long time and then pivoted a couple years ago to really work more on the fundraising side of higher education. So kind of a roundabout route to where I've been. But I think sometimes that happens and you learn a little bit along the way and tweak and pivot and yeah, end up where you are.
Thank you, Bridget. All right, go ahead, Keegan.
Alrighty, so something we always do in the military is we do something called the bottom line up front. What's the kind of like the super distinct what's here? I'm from the reality is was I knew that I wanted to swim because I was on the swim team. Things were pretty much what I knew that I wanted to do, but career aspirations very much was kind of I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. So I did typically what Lehigh has a lot of opportunities. So what I decided to do was just try to take part in a lot of opportunities. So people have been mentioning the UN partnership. I did something over the winter break during the COVID year during 2020 with the UN partnership. Became a Griffin. That kind of gave me a sense of serving other people, or essentially just kind of serving on behalf of other people. I had the swimming aspect, so that was kind of still going with everything. But then also I had the in classroom experiences of doing international relations, learning about international security, international economics, all the things that kind of make the world operate. Um, and for me, ultimately, I went to a Lehigh career fair my sophomore year. As a sophomore, that was something that was a lot of people didn't do, but I was like, might as well see kind of what's out there. Walked by a Marine recruiter, never really considered the military. Kind of made sense for me though. Was very disciplined, had a high level of aspirations for fitness, serving other people. That's ultimately what you do in the Marine Corps. You serve on behalf of the American people. And it was just a career path that I never had really considered before, but I really much considered it. So I talked to the Marine recruiter, went through the whole process, ultimately ended up going through officer candidate school, which is essentially instead of doing the traditional internship, they consider that you join the military. Your internship is the hardest job interview on the face of the planet, which is you going through boot camp and proving that you have what it takes to essentially, lead Marines in this case as an officer. So that's essentially my career path. Obviously, still kind of new to it. I've only been out here, as we say, we're in the fleet. So I've been out in the Fleet Marine Corps for about 2 years. Still learning a lot of stuff, but ultimately, all of my Lehigh experiences very much developed kind of the end state for me of joining the Marine Corps and leading Marines.
Great. And lastly, Sophia.
Yeah, so my path to digital strategy was not linear at all. I mean, Karen can attest to that. I can't even count how many times I utilized the Career Center at Lehigh. But I think because my path wasn't so linear, it actually helped me figure out what I enjoy the most. When I first came to Lehigh, I thought I was gonna be a lawyer. I was studying for the LSAT. Like, I think spring of my sophomore year. And I realized like, okay, this is not the journey that I want to go towards. So I, explored a variety of experiences across, journalism and media and also obviously politics, which ultimately connected back to my, again, passion for storytelling. I was involved with the Brown and White all 4 years of college. I was a reporter, an editor, and a columnist. And, that really opened my eyes into political communications. I started the first political column here at Lehigh my senior year. I also interned for PBS 39 as a news intern. And after I graduated, worked at Elle Magazine as an editorial associate, which isn't really my niche for politics, but it really gave me exposure to national editorial writing and how, tone and framing really shifts depending on the platform and the audience. I was also part of the UN Youth Representative Program. I know there's a few folks on here that also are part of that right now, which really gave me my first exposure to international politics and diplomacy. And I also got to tour the UN headquarters in Geneva, Switzerland, when I studied abroad in my junior year. Each of these experiences really showed me a different version of storytelling. When I was at the UN, I was able to attend press conferences for the press secretary of Secretary Guterres, and it really was just super eye-opening and being able to see rapid response from an international level. I also built experience obviously on Capitol Hill. I was a press intern my sophomore year going to my sophomore year of college, and then became a digital fellow right after my job last summer. And I think being in digital on the Hill really was a turning point for me. It really solidified my passion for digital storytelling and digital strategy, and honestly, ultimately led me to have this position right now on Team Shapiro. I also worked as a comms associate for VP Harris's campaign last year, which also gave me firsthand experience in high pressure political communication. So I guess my message is like really try everything out. You never know where you're going to end up. From freshman year to now, I never thought I would be on a governor's reelection campaign. I thought I would be in law school. So, yeah.
Awesome. The next question really builds off that last one too, and kind of I feel like the idea that like I feel like all college kids kind of experience where you think you're gonna do one thing and you end up doing another. But the question is, what sort of internships or experiential learning opportunities would you suggest students take advantage of to gain experience in your field? Oh, and we'll start with Bridget.
Awesome. I think so. I feel like students, so I have a daughter who's in high school and talk to a ton of her friends and kids who are in college. I think people put so much pressure right now on their internship experience. And it is important, right? When you're thinking through what you want to do and what you want to put on your resume. But my hot take is that really any internship experience is extraordinarily valuable. And so follow what you think you might be interested in, because whether or not that internship tells you, yes, like I love this and I want to continue and iterate on this, or it tells you, like, I absolutely hate this and want to pivot. Both are extraordinarily valuable. So go for that thing that you think looks the most interesting, and try it, is my take. I also think it doesn't have to be a formal internship experience or an intern program in order to be an internship or super valuable as you're experiencing different things and trying out what you think you might want to do. Um, for me, that, was being a Griffin on campus was hugely valuable, even though that wasn't an internship. Or, I know, Marion, I think you mentioned you're captain of the swim team. Like, leading a team is hugely valuable, even if it's not an internship experience. So make sure you are, talking about those experiences that you have outside of formal internship experiences. Um, and then my other piece of advice, because I think I'm the oldest person here, is take advantage of people you talk to and people you know in your network. I think people really want to help. And so even if it's doing, a couple week shadow program at someone's place of work where you're just really getting a taste of an industry or a taste of a type of position, that's hugely valuable. So try different things. I wish someone would have told me kind of when I was going into college, I knew I was dead set on, being a psych major. And I wish I would have explored a little bit more. I think I actually probably would have liked the business school. I would have liked to be a marketing major. I also, Sophia, toyed with the idea of law school and took the LSAT. And that was a very quick dream after I took the LSAT. That didn't go super well. So use all of this time to explore. You don't need to know exactly what you want to do. And even experiences like, and then I'll stop, but even experiences like waiting tables or, whatever your part-time job is to make money while you're in school, like those are all hugely valuable. There's sales skills there, there's people skills, customer service skills, and those you need in about a million different types of careers. So kind of take all of that and embrace it. So that's my
Awesome.
advice.
I think that's super helpful advice. Keegan, you're next.
Yeah, so kind of really echo what Bridget just said. Kind of had a lot of my same points, but ultimately, right now we're on a Zoom call for the Center for Career and Professional Development. That's just one of many tools that Lehigh really has that really differentiates itself from other institutions. The alumni network at Lehigh, the reason you're going to a school like Lehigh is like, yes, it has the name recognition, but it has the name recognition because it has very established alumni in their field. And heck, a lot of those alumni are now professors at Lehigh. So kind of something that Bridget said, something that I would really echo is the fact that the Marine is very much it's all you know. That's not just a Marine Corps thing; that's a life thing. So what do I mean by that? Essentially, we have this saying in the Marine Corps. It says, "Closed mouths don't get fed." If you want to do something, go out and do it. When you're at Lehigh, take that class that sounds interesting. Talk to that professor that you wouldn't normally talk to. Really try to build your network because your network is very much going to set you up for success or set you up for failure. Because at the end of the day, really, really go off of that alumni network, the fact that it is so established at Lehigh, and really use that to your advantage every single day. Um, Ultimately, I would really say that yeah, that pretty much sums up pretty much most of my points. Just use your professors, use the alumni network, and ultimately vouch for yourself. Kind of like how Bridget was saying, you don't have to do traditional internships. If you do untraditional internships, make sure you document that and make sure you're able to vouch for yourself and explain how that internship or how that experience ultimately made you a better professional. And ultimately, because that's all you really have to do when you're applying for jobs, it's you against everyone else, and you just have to beat everyone else's applications. And if you can vouch for yourself in the right way and really put into words what you did, you'll be ultimately be successful. But that's why the places like the Career Center and Lehigh has all the resources. You just have to be the one that go out and actually and utilize them.
Awesome. All right, Sophia.
Yeah, I mean, before I answer this question, I want to stress that, not again, like not everyone's path is the same. And like for those of you on here that feel like you're behind or you're not caught up like to your other peers, like trust, like everything will play out just the way it needs to be. And I know it's easier said than done, but really like just trust the process because I know it's hard. But my main advice is to really prioritize as much hands-on experience as early as possible. I mean, for me, I was abroad again my junior year, and then after that, was doing the Washington semester program at American, which allowed me to intern at the White House. And it really, like, as much as I didn't hated the fact that my fall of my senior year was not on campus and I wasn't, you know, hanging out with my friends for the last time, like last few times, like on campus, it was really valuable experience and I would not trade it for the world. Um, what made the biggest difference wasn't really like where I worked or like this the symbolic or power institutions that I have had experience at, but what I was able to learn from these roles, like I again did not think that I would want to have I didn't think that I would have a passion for storytelling. I again thought I would be in law school. And looking back, I'm really glad that I was able to be open-minded and, intern and work at all these different places because it really solidified what I am interested in now. I also advise you to don't underestimate, smaller opportunities, working for the brown and white, even if you're not like a journalism major, excuse me, it's still a great experience to grow your writing. Managing social media for an organization, I didn't think I would be managing social media for a governor, but here I am. Or volunteering on a campaign, those small stuff can really, you know, it can lead to a bigger thing in the future. So yeah, the biggest takeaway is just don't limit yourself too early, be open-minded, stay curious and, focus on building the skills and obviously don't put too much pressure on yourself because everything will play out the way it needs to be.
Awesome. All right, and Raven?
Sure, I would just foot stomp two things. The first thing that Bridget said about following your passion. It's very easy to kind of get caught up once you're out in the real world where you have to find a job, you have to be very serious. You're at a point right now in your career or your student career where you can really explore what you love. And it sometimes may not be where you end up, but the skills you learn along the way can be really valuable. So after I graduated from Lehigh, I moved to Paris for 2.5 years, got my master's, and ended up internship with an internship at the OECD. I basically was working on their marketing and communications teams, helping them kind of translate documents from French into other languages. And while it obviously wasn't where I ended up, it taught me a lot about like critical thinking, customer service, how to kind of culturally shift back and forth, interacting with different people, and overall just learning how to be a global citizen. And I felt that that was really valuable, although in the moment it was everything, but it didn't end up really leading to where I am now in my career. And then what Keegan said about marketing kind of these unique opportunities that you have. So part of my master's program, I also thought I wanted to be a lawyer for those on the call. I was able to do an international law practicum through my graduate program, where we actually went out to The Hague and viewed trials at the International Criminal Court, and the former tribunal for the conflict in Yugoslavia. And I spent a lot of that time just learning about international law and what it means in the context of kind of what's going on in the world, the conflicts, and if any of these mechanisms actually had teeth, because that was kind of my jam, is like, what are they doing and does it mean anything? And that opportunity, I didn't end up becoming a lawyer. I did also take the LSAT, hated it, didn't want to do it again. But when I came back from the Peace Corps and I applied to the Department of Justice, that was an experience I was able to articulate and kind of set myself apart from the other folks that I was competing with in a job, and it actually landed me that job. So just being able to take these tiny little nuggets of things that you're interested in the moment, and using that to kind of take that next step in your career.
All right, thank you guys for your answers. It's really interesting to hear about some of our common interests and how we've done a lot of the same programs. So now a question that's more catered for this panel. Government and nonprofit hiring can sometimes feel different from private sector hiring. So what should students know about navigating these processes? And Keegan, we'll start with you.
Alrighty, so like I said earlier, so I'm an officer in the Marine Corps, but I'm going to kind of speak on behalf of the Department of War in the sense of kind of how it operates. The military is pretty straightforward, right? In the sense that there's a lot of hurdles you have to kind of essentially jump through in order to essentially wear the uniform one day and ultimately essentially make into the service. So, like I said earlier, for those of you interested in the military side of things, two biggest hurdles are going to be the medical process, and ultimately kind of like the physical side of things too. Big push right now in the Department of War to make sure we have service members really meeting very strict physical requirements. So my words of wisdom would be, if you're trying to do a career in the military, it doesn't have to be the Marines, it can be, Space Force, Army, Navy, you name it, you could essentially do it. I would say make sure your physical fitness is very much up to par. And with the medical stuff, sometimes people have innate medical conditions that disqualify them from service. But what I would say to that is there are waivers that you can get in order to kind of jump that process. So just because you think you might have something doesn't mean you shouldn't try to essentially talk to a recruiter in the Marine Corps or the Navy or whatever branch kind of floats your boat. Play on words there. I said the Navy, float your boat. Kind of see which one kind of works in your favor. In terms of the branches of the military, ultimately I'm in the Marine Corps, so I'm a little biased. I think the Marine Corps is the best branch. But anyone in any of the branches would say the same thing about their branch. ultimately what it boils down to is if you're interested in the military, there's definitely a branch for you. Each one kind of has its own little kind of like persona or things that they like kind of emphasize more than other branches. Um, but ultimately, what I would say is if you're trying to do a career in the military, have backup plans. Sometimes things happen that are outside of your control. So if you're looking at the military, maybe like that doesn't work out, you can always do stuff in the private sector on behalf of the government that works very much with the service. Things like the FBI and all these other departments, all the three-letter agencies, very much do stuff that's kind of hand in hand with the military. So don't get discouraged if the military ultimately doesn't work out. There's a ton of jobs in the private sector that work hand in hand, like I said, with the military. But something I think that's really cool about the Department of War and about the military is just the opportunities that you have available to you. So like, grew up in Massachusetts, went to school in Pennsylvania. Now I live in Southern California, which is pretty sweet. I'm going to Korea for 4 months here, and about next Friday I leave. So there's a lot of opportunities available. Law seems to be a very common theme on this call. I'm actually actively studying for the LSAT, and I happen to actually enjoy it. So hopefully it goes pretty well. But I'm ultimately trying to become a lawyer in the Marine Corps, or become a JAG as they're referred to. Definitely a lot of opportunities, like I said, but yeah, definitely can connect more offline if you have more intricate questions about how the Department of War, how the military kind of operates.
Definitely. And we'll probably have some time at the end of the panel for you guys to share your contacts. All right, Sophia, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that can be surprising is definitely how different hiring can feel compared to the private sector. In government, I feel like hiring is often less structured and more driven. And I think was it? I think it was Keegan that said it's like really utilizing the career center and like, networking. Lehigh, again, great school, and I'm so honored to have a degree from this school. But you have to, go out there and meet people because you never know how one interaction can really change the trajectory of your career. Um, Also, not every opportunity is posted on LinkedIn or on Indeed. Like sometimes roles come together very quickly. How I found this job was literally from a Signal group chat. I am not joking. You will not find campaign jobs very often on LinkedIn. You kind of have to go out there and, interact with people. And because of that, that's why I would really recommend networking. It's super important, but do it in a very genuine way because people can really clock if you're just trying to talk to someone for a job. Stay in touch with people you've worked with, follow up after internships and really maintain those relationships because they are going to be helpful in the longer run. Also, trust the process. I said this before, timing is also a huge factor. You might apply somewhere and not hear back. I literally wanted to work at CNN. If it wasn't for this job, I really wanted to be a journalist. Karen was there through it all, but I really trust like God's timing. Like he is great, and I'm really proud and happy to be where I'm at right now. And um, also, I think it's important not to take rejection. Personally, being like a Democrat in politics, it's hard to get a job, and I will never take it personal if I don't get. I mean, no, I will take it personal, but like I will never let it reflect my ability because I know it's hard. Um, but overall, be proactive, stay connected with people that choose to work with, and be patient with the process.
Great. Thank you, Sophia. Raven?
So working in the federal government is its own kind of particular beast as a civilian. The military and civilian sides are very different. Unfortunately, you're going to have to navigate USA jobs, and it is a nightmare. It has always been a nightmare. It continues to be a nightmare. But that's kind of like the first hurdle, and I would say, in my opinion, it's the hardest hurdle, because once you get that foot in the door, it's easier to move around, and then you're able to network and make those connections and apply to jobs. But being cognizant of the fact that there are a lot of folks right now looking for jobs. Even when I was entering the workforce, it was really bad. And I think it's like 3 times as worse now as far as it just being a numbers game. And so what I would recommend is to apply to everything because you never know what opportunities will allow you to build skills that will be transferable across jobs. You're not always going to get your first choice job. You might not even get your third choice. But taking that chance and getting your foot in the door, building your what we call a hall file or your reputation in the federal government, and just kind of presenting yourself as professionally as you can is the most important part. And then as you kind of learn and navigate and meet folks and network, you're able to kind of hone your career in the direction that you want to go in. And then, as Keegan also said, there are some private sector opportunities, some contractors. So if you're not able to make it into the federal government as a govie just yet, you can start out as a contractor. We have folks that actually move both ways. They start in the government, go to contracting, vice versa. And there are different kind of intricacies and benefits to both. And then also taking advantage of certain opportunities that might give you that leg up. So serving in the military, doing things like AmeriCorps or Peace Corps will give you certain preferences. So when you're putting in your application, a lot of folks are looking for people who have served their country in a variety of ways. And so if you've done that, that's a really great way to kind of move your application closer to the front of the line. It doesn't guarantee you a job, but it's a great way to kind of showcase your skills and your willingness to kind of contribute to public service. But overall, unfortunately, it's just a nightmare that you have to deal with. But I'm definitely happy to talk with folks offline about the best way to navigate that process.
Okay, and lastly, Bridget.
Yeah, I'm sure all of you on the call have a ton of friends who want to go into finance and consulting. That's kind of how it works at Lehigh and other schools. And in some ways, it's easy, right? Like those types of companies come on campus on kind of a regular schedule. They hire in large groups, and there's kind of a normal cycle of that. And so when you're not going into that kind of consulting and finance world, it can feel disconcerting. Especially if you happen to graduate and you don't have a job yet. But let me tell you, after 6 months after graduation, the vast majority of people will have a job. So do not panic. I think when you're not looking at government or at consulting and finance, you just need to have a balance of being patient while also being hungry. These jobs come up when people leave, and so you just don't know when that's going to be. So you really have to be patient, but you also have to be hungry because you have to be reaching out to people, you have to be making connections. Look for those Lehigh people on LinkedIn who might work at the organization that you're interested in, even if they're not in a role that's exactly what you want to do. If you can learn more about the organization and the culture, do that. People generally like to talk about themselves and their experience, and generally they like to help people. So don't be embarrassed to reach out. And don't be embarrassed to just talk to random people. You're on a flight and you're sitting next to someone and, ask them what they do and see what they do. Just explore and learn. And keep looking because you just never know when that job is going to come up. And so the more hyper connected you are, the more people are going to think of you when that job does come up. And then I just wanted to echo something Sophia said. I think networking kind of sometimes has a bad rap or kind of people are nervous about it. Think of it as relationship building and think of it just as authentic connections. I think the more you can bring your authentic self to the conversation and just ask good questions and be honest about like, hey, I'm exploring. I'm not sure what I want to do. Or hey, I really think it would be cool to work at whatever organization. Tell me about your experience there. What's the culture like? Just be yourself, be honest, be sincere will be my biggest piece of advice. But maintain those relationships. That is super, super important. Keep in touch with people, connect with them on LinkedIn, send them updates. If you talk to people about jobs and you end up getting a really cool internship or whatever, let them know. Be like, hey, I wanted to let you know people get invested in people and people want to know about your success. So don't hesitate.
Awesome, thanks. I think this is really helpful for like how to make the right connections and how students can get involved in networking. Before we get into the next question, I just want to remind any students listening, if you guys have any questions, drop them in the chat because we're going to have a question and answer session at the end. So then we can have the panelists answer your specific questions. Okay, and then the next question is kind of what everyone's been talking about. How is AI impacting your field? And we'll start with Sophia.
Yeah, I mean, it's no secret that AI is becoming more present, in our day-to-day lives, but especially in my field in digital strategy and content creation. Obviously, it can be a very useful tool for, drafting and brainstorming or helping teams move faster in very fast-paced environments. But at the same time, it does raise serious ethical concerns, especially around misinformation and authenticity. I mean, I see it played out in politics like every day. Our president uses AI generated, content to depict, um, Democrats in a way that can, sometimes feel misleading or exaggerated. And that kind of content very much can spread very quickly online and, shape people's opinions. I'm not trying to come on here and, be opinionated, but we all see it play out like very often, especially now. Um, so yeah, I know that AI can feel easy and can increase efficiency, but it also blurs the line between what's real and what's constructed. And I feel like in a field like politics, where trust and credibility is so important, that's a really big challenge that a lot of digital strategists face every day. Um, However, in my role, the responsibility is, I mean, I don't use, just to be very clear, any AI for my work, but just be thoughtful about how to use these tools and to make sure that, we're always going to be accurate and authentic in all of our work. So, yeah, I don't know if that answers the question specifically, but just trying to respond in a very personable way.
Oh yeah, thank you. Raven?
Yeah, so like Sophia said, AI is becoming very commonplace. But in kind of the intelligence space where I am, there is a healthy apprehension about using it. I can't exactly get into specifics of what I mean by that, but I will say that critical thinking, tradecraft analysis by humans, by people, by groups of folks who are on teams looking at particular problem sets are still kind of in the forefront for us. It's very important that when we are making assessments about particular threats, particular threat actors, terrorist events, that they're as accurate and as unbiased and as useful to our customers as possible. Of course, there are tools that can kind of AI tools that can kind of help us along a little bit, but we are checking, rechecking, and mostly just relying on our own brains and in keeping those sharp. We are constantly being sent off to training and being encouraged to mentor and train younger analysts, newer analysts to really use that brain and to see AI as a secondary tool instead of a replacement for a person behind a computer screen, really reading and interpreting information in the best way we can.
Awesome. Bridget?
You guys, I am the last person you want to hear talk about AI. I am still learning a lot. What I will tell you is that I, for my entire career, have worked in the relationship building, community building, world. And so I don't think AI can replace that. But that being said, I think there's a lot of things where AI can help with efficiencies, so that more time can be spent on what's the most important. Like use AI to streamline your inbox, to streamline your work, to do kind of some of the things that just are kind of more admin or task oriented so that you can use your brain on all of the other stuff. But like I said, I am no expert. I have a lot to learn. I think people who are going into the workforce now will be kind of forced to be in this AI space of figuring out how to leverage it in a way that I'm kind of jealous of. I feel like a little bit of a dinosaur. I'm trying to learn and catch up. But I think there's a good place for making our work um, more efficient in a world where there's a lot of work to do and not a lot of time. So why not leverage that?
Yeah. Keegan?
Yeah, I very much think AI is very much a double-edged sword. Especially being an admin and a legal officer, see a lot of paperwork. Essentially, I'm kind of like the middleman between myself and my boss, who's Lieutenant Colonel, who's the commanding officer of the unit. So I think very much AI is good because it kind of like how Bridget was saying, it streamlines a lot of processes, especially working in administration. And even like some of my more junior Marines who are still learning, the whole hierarchy of the military. They're sending an email to someone who's been in the Marine Corps for 15 years, who's an officer. There's a certain way that you should be addressing, for example, an email. And AI is a good tool to essentially teach them, essentially put what they have in there. They can like use the AI tool to essentially show them like make this email a little bit more like a little bit more respectful. So I think in that case, if you can use it for the right reasons, it's a fantastic resource. Even things like we have Excel spreadsheets and we're trying to figure out all these formulas. And a lot of times Marines came straight out of high school. They don't have a Lehigh education. They don't know how Excel functions as high level as say someone who's a finance student at Lehigh. So like AI is very good in the sense that it kind of helps them. It teaches them a lot of things that they wouldn't normally be able to do. Um, but AI is very much it is changing warfare for sure. Kind of speaking on top, kind of as the Department of War as a whole, it's very much is changing how wars are fought. But you can never replace the knowledge. Kind of what Raven was saying, you can never replace the knowledge of a Marine, a sailor, a civilian, anyone that, in the eyes of the Marine Corps, the Department of Defense, anyone that's working in that capacity, AI can never replace the knowledge and the know-how that people on the ground actually have. So like I said, I think it'd be a good process for, streamlining some admin stuff, but in terms of actual warfare and kind of higher level decision making and policy making, all that kind of stuff, I think you still have to have people that, have the experience, been in the space for 20, 25, 30 years. Ultimately, there's generals with stars in their collars. Those stars mean something. They have the experience to kind of back up what they're saying. So, like I said, double-edged sword, but I think that definitely can be of help in some capacities.
All right. We're getting to our last question. So again, I'll remind students after all our panelists finish this question out, we'll head to a Q&A. So if you start thinking of things, please again feel free to throw them in the Q&A chat. So our last question is, what do you think might surprise students most when they enter your field? Raven, we'll start with you.
Sure. I think like when you think of counterterrorism and intelligence, you think of like a very narrow group of people. But one thing I've learned, especially being at NCTC, where we're actually a little bit more public facing, we're not as secret as some of the three-letter agencies. We have folks from every single path. We have people like me who kind of meandered all over the place in law and development. We have folks from academia. We have lawyers. We have doctors. We have folks who served in the military. We have retired generals and folks. We have law enforcement. It's kind of this big group of folks who come from a variety of backgrounds who have this common passion for the mission. We're very mission first. We're very passionate about what we do. Our organization was stood up in the wake of 9/11 and the intelligence failure that it was. And so we're all just here trying to make the world a better place and safer for our fellow Americans. But that doesn't necessarily mean you have to have a path. So it's really great to just come into the office and have folks from a variety of different walks of life and culture and experiences to be able to do this thing. And then when we attack a problem set, we're all bringing that kind of different lens of our experiences, our education, our internships, our previous jobs to really do the best that we can.
Go ahead, Bridget.
I was just going to say, so I have kind of two thoughts. One is if you're thinking about government nonprofit, think about higher ed. I think I'm not sure I realized until I really worked in higher ed for a while just how many types of opportunities there are within the higher education sphere. I mean, you could work at a college or university and you could be working within the investment office. You could be working within, the kind of policy area. You could be doing fundraising like I am. You could be teaching. They're almost like mini corporations. And so the different types of opportunities are truly remarkable. I mean, you could do marketing, so many things. And there's a ton of opportunity working with higher ed. If you want to go to grad school, a lot of times there are benefits where you can go to graduate school either for free or for a reduced rate. So I would seriously consider higher education as a potential opportunity as you're starting your career because I think it can branch off into a myriad of things. And then the second thing I'll say is and I don't know if this is really a surprise, but I think there's some universal truths, no matter what you do in your career to pay attention to. People skills are generally going to be hugely important no matter what you do. That emotional intelligence, um, being detail oriented, being a problem solver. Don't bring problems, bring solutions. That's going to go over well no matter where you work. Being able to manage up and work with leadership, that's going to be really important. Sales skills, no matter what you do, you're probably going to be trying to influence people to do something. So really think about those skill sets as you're kind of building out your resume and your skill set, and talk about those things in an interview because they'll apply anywhere. That's my advice.
Great, thank you, Bridget. Next to you, Sophia.
Oh, hi. I thought Keegan was one before me, but it's okay. Um,
Sorry,
I guess
we'll
one.
just go with that.
Okay.
No, sorry, I meant we'll just have Sophia go first and then
Oh,
Keegan. Sorry about that.
okay. No, it's totally fine. Don't worry about it. I guess what would surprise students in my field is honestly how unpredictable the work is. I mean, we, can start off a day with like a content plan, and then one news hit like could just change everything, and we just have to pivot our content strategy entirely, which again would require a lot of adaptability and the ability to think on your feet, and also it could really alter your news diet. I also think people are often surprised about how much responsibility you have, even as like an entry level job. Excuse the vacuum, they're vacuuming the office. But yeah, I mean, even being an associate, the content that I make reaches a large audience very quickly. And back to what Bridget said, like detail orientedness is super, super crucial in this field. Um, and it's also very exciting because that actually makes me really thoughtful of what I put out on behalf of my principal's voice. Another thing that I find surprising with this work is that digital isn't often very isolating. It's very, very collaborative. You're constantly working with, our comms team. Like there's no us without comms. We're working with our research team to make sure that everything is aligned. So yeah, it's a very dynamic job, which I love so much. It's very challenging. It pushes me every single day, but it's also very, very rewarding.
All right, and then lastly, Keegan.
Alrighty, so I think very much something I've been surprised about is a lot of people think the military, they think the Marine Corps, it gives them a certain image. A lot of people that don't know anything about the military, you tell them like, "Hey, I'm joining the military," like from a non-military family. A lot of people are like, "Well, why would you want to do that?" Because a lot of people have this image of the military is someone running up a hill with a machine gun against the enemy. Which, yes, that is a subset of the military. That's not entitled. There's over 2 million people in the United States military. Something I think that's kind of something that keeping back of your mind is in the military, you can do pretty much any job. You want to be a doctor, go to the Navy and be a doctor. You want to be a dentist, you want to be a lawyer, law seems to be a common theme here. You want to fix air conditioners, pretty much any single job that you want to do, the Department of Defense, each one of the services has those jobs available to you. So that's something that I think I was really kind of surprised by. Um, and I think the other thing too is just kind of going off the fact that like when I entered the Marine Corps, just the amount of backgrounds that you get to work with is more unique than I would say like corporate America. Because a lot of times, you're working at a place like EY or something like that. A lot of those people they just came straight from college. Military, a lot of times, unless you went officer route, officers a lot of times because you have to go through college in order to become an officer. A lot of the enlisted, they came straight out of high school. So you're going to meet kids from small town potato farms in Idaho. You're going to meet people that went to Lehigh, that went to Penn State, that went to all these big schools. And it's a super cool kind of place to get to know people because you can meet people from all walks of life, but we're all on Team America just trying to make the world a better place and ultimately just try to keep everyone safe at home. So I think that's been kind of really cool being a part of the military. But ultimately, the military is very similar to corporate America. What do I mean by that? There's very much a hierarchy. And yes, we're going to do things like, I'm an admin and a legal officer, but like I'm still going to go to Korea. I'm still going to go on a machine gun range. I'm still going to fire my primary weapon system, which is an M4 rifle once a year. So like, yes, you're still going to have those aspects of being a warfighter, but ultimately there's a ton of different jobs, and you really have the opportunity to kind of do what your heart desires. So that's been pretty cool, but it's very similar to corporate America in terms of the hierarchy, in terms of how you promote, the fact that you need to know people. Bridget was talking about your people skills, super, super important. Because like she kind of mentioned, in the Marine Corps, we don't say no. We say yes with degrees of risk. That's essentially what that looks like. Um, but yeah, so I would say like a lot of people have one image of the military. If you even have a little bit of interest in the military, I would say go for it, because essentially do your research and learn a lot more about it before you make the decision, because a lot of people's kind of perception of how the military and how the Marine Corps, how the Navy, or how the Army operates might be a little lopsided by Hollywood and what you see in like Saving Private Ryan, which is like, if you want to be Saving Private Ryan, cool, you can be that guy. But there's also a ton of different jobs that are available to you at the end of the day.
Awesome. All right, now we're gonna jump into the question and answer section. So the first question is kind of something that's come up a lot today, and it's for those of you who are considering law school but ended up not going, what was the like aspect that drew you away from it? Does anyone want to start or?
Bridget, I saw you unmute first.
Fine. I think I realized like you actually have to like go to law school. I was like, I can't do it. I think for so many students like me at the time, I knew I wanted to learn more and I wanted to continue school, and I wasn't quite ready to kind of pick that job out of school yet. And so law school becomes kind of a default. And going through the LSAT process, I realized like this is it's not that I'm opposed to working really hard, but this isn't the work that I want to be doing that's really hard. Um, so I don't know. Like I said, I think sometimes it's a default. Like, I'm not sure what I want to do. I'm going to go to law school, and people think law school is pretty, you can do so many things with a law degree, which you really can, but ultimately you're doing the law. And so you really have to love it. And it is not easy and super competitive. So you really have to be in it to win it if you're going to go to law school. Be sure.
Yeah, to piggyback what Bridget said, like, I don't think like any of our responses should depict whether or not you want to get a JD. It just really trust your gut, and again, you have to love it because it's literally the hardest 3 years of your life. Like, I I really wanted to be a lawyer, and then I went through the LSAT process, and I was just like, hell no. But yeah, I mean, again, just trust your gut. And even if you don't go, like, again, there's so many amazing jobs that will take someone without, even a master's degree. So, yeah, again, I would just go with your gut. Prioritize, your well-being as well, before making those decisions, because it's a commitment for sure, both financially and also academically.
Something I would say is coming that's kind of in the opposite scenario of that. Ultimately, I think there's a lot of value, and if you are doing higher ed, you want to get a master's, you want to go to law school, you want to go to medical school, something of that nature. I'm assuming a lot of times, because this is like the government and kind of international relations kind of career, there's a lot of times people in that space tend to lean towards more towards law school. I think there's a lot of value, but in my opinion, this is just speaking on what I believe and what I've seen from a lot of other people. Going into industry for a year, 2 years, 3 years, and then doing law school, and making that decision. One, it's a financial thing, but two, you kind of get some experience on your resume, and then you can kind of speak to that. If a lot of times, if you're going to law school straight out of college, you might have an internship from like your junior or senior year, but in all reality, like you're only doing that internship for maybe 2 to 3 months. When you're in industry for 2, 3, 4 years, it gives you a lot more kind of credibility in the field that you're in. And ultimately, that's something that you can really kind of use to your advantage for law school, because when you're applying to law schools when you're applying to law school, it's super competitive. Kind of goes back to the idea of vouching for yourself. Closed mouths don't get fed. You have to show on your application, regardless of your LSAT score, that you're the best person for that law school. So when you have industry on your experience, when you have industry on your record, you can really vouch for that. And also gives you some time to study for the LSAT and determine, is this something that you really want to do? Because law school is super expensive, and the higher you can do on the LSAT, you might be able to get a scholarship or things of that nature. But that's why, in my opinion, I think there's a lot of value between going into industry and then potentially deciding to do a higher degree.
I will also just add that like the reason it didn't work out for me is because it's not really what I wanted to do. I was really young and I had like 5 jobs in my head that were like possible when there are so many more things to do. And so it was just a matter of taking that step back, taking that deep breath, and just living life, experiencing different types of jobs. Which was ironic because I ended up working with lawyers for 3 years and I absolutely loved working with them, but it just wasn't what I was passionate about. It's not what I wanted to do. It wasn't the root of why I thought I wanted to be a lawyer in the first place. And no shade to them. Like federal prosecutors are some of the most well-respected people to me, particularly the ones working international human rights cases. But it just wasn't my path and it wasn't for me. And I kind of had to let go of some of what I thought others expected of me, of what I thought I was supposed to do, and finding what I wanted to do and what I was passionate about that actually propelled me further in my career because I actually wanted to do it and I enjoy it.
Okay, we want to be really respectful of everyone's time, so we'll do one more question, maybe keep it to one or two panelists to respond to that, and then we've also asked panelists to type answers if they can. So we'll finish out with this question. What skills or experiences have been the most valuable in your work that aren't necessarily emphasized at college?
I can answer that. For me, it's just curiosity. I have been working weapon systems for about a year now, and I never thought I would be doing that. I actually got dragged into it by a mentor of mine. And just being able to be curious and willing to learn and willing to kind of put myself in these unexpected situations has served me really well. And I think will serve anybody well in any position. And just going into your job every day and thinking, how can I improve myself or how can I improve my coworkers or the organization? And just making sure that like you're keeping that kind of learner's mentality.
For me, oh,
Something I
sorry,
would
go.
say is probably honestly reading. I think reading is something that's really solid. And the reason why is because if you're in a particular career field, what I would say words of wisdom is you should become obsessed with that career field and really have this innate quality, become the best version of yourself and be the best person in that field. And when you read, you listen to audiobooks, you can kind of learn from others. It gives you a lot more credibility because like anyone can type something in the chat GPT and sound educated, but if you can actually hold a conversation for like 30 minutes about a topic that you're supposed to be the subject matter expert on, it gives you a lot more credibility. And that ultimately will build relationships and that will ultimately help you kind of be successful in your field. So I would just say like reading and kind of that kind of goes like on go with the idea of curiosity.
Bridget, do you want to close this out?
I was just gonna say, I think I always kind of thought of leadership as this, big, lofty, capital L thing where, you're taking this huge group of people and on this journey. And I actually think leadership is much more about kind of day-to-day decisions and kind of interactions that you have with people. And you can lead from any area of the organization. It doesn't just have to be with people who are kind of technically below you. You can be leading within like your colleague group. You can be leading sideways. You can lead up. So I think a little bit differently about leadership and how you're showing up as a leader on a day-to-day basis. And it doesn't have to be this big thing, and a big specific role within an organization.
All right. Thank you to our panelists. We are over time just by a little bit, but it's been great to hear from you. I'd like to ask if you guys are comfortable, if you could share your LinkedIn's or your emails in the chat so that our students can connect with you. Marin, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, thanks everybody who tuned in and listened, and thanks to all the panelists for sharing your experiences and your advice. I think there are a lot of key takeaways today, and I feel like we all have similar degrees. We're all Lehigh students. We all were here at one point in time, but the opportunities are endless if we get involved. So thanks for sharing all the ways you got involved at Lehigh and then beyond with all of us. It's super helpful.
I don't think we're able to comment something that the attendees can see, so uh, my LinkedIn is just my name, literally. You'll see it.
I think for students, all of your profiles are in the Handshake event description. So if your names are, they can search your names in LinkedIn using that information. But we appreciate you making that available for students. So. All right. Thank you so much to everybody. Marin and Ryan, you did a great job. Panelists, alumni, Sophia, Raven, Bridget, Keegan, thank you. You gave amazing advice. We're so grateful to have you here in the time. And we wish you all the best in all that you're doing. So thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you for attending, attendees.